Good evening. I'd like to call our regular council meeting on Monday, February 9th to order at 6 p.m. I'm Mayor McNeil Smith. Council colleagues in the chamber, to my far left, Councillor Novick, Councillor O'Keefe, Councillor Rintoul will be absent this evening. To my far right, Councillor Duck, Councillor Duncan, and Councillor Gurnett. Good evening to members of staff, and good evening to members of the public and presenters in the chamber, and to those who may be watching the live web stream or a recording of the meeting at a later date. I'd like to provide the territorial acknowledgement and respectfully acknowledge that we're holding our meeting in the territory of the WSÁNEĆ people, the Tsawout Nation, the Tsartlip Nation, the Pakwachin Nation, the Tseycum Nation, and the Malahat Nation, and we acknowledge their historical relationship to the land and waters that continues to this day. In turning to approval of the agenda, since the agenda was published last Thursday, we have one addition. And that is, and it will be placed under my mayor's report. I did submit, and it did run, I did submit an op-ed on the proposal for direct transit service to the airport, Victoria Airport. And that did appear in the paper on Saturday, and I would like to report on that this evening. And with that, I would seek movers for approval of the agenda, Councillors Duck and Novick. Councillor Duncan, please.
I merely had one edit. It's just typo, and 15.5. It should be dated January 30th, 2026, not 3036. Very minor edit, but message from the future.
We're forward thinking, but thank you. Thank you for noticing that. And with that correction, we do have movers. I'll call the question. Those in favor? Thank you. That carries. And we're next turning to approval of the minutes. If I could have a mover to approve the minutes of our January 26th meeting. Councillors Duck and Novick, any correction to the minutes? Corrections? Not seeing any. Those in favor? Thank you. Opposed? None opposed. It carries. And we're next turning to public participation, where we provide an opportunity for members of the public to come forward to address council. We ask that you stay to 4 minutes to be fair to all speakers. And that when you come forward, please provide your name, the municipality that you reside in, or the organization you represent. There's just a little button at the bottom of the microphone to make it live for the recording. I'll call for a first time for those wishing to come forward, please. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Bob DeWolf. I'm a resident of North Saanich, and I'm the president of the Saanich Peninsula Folk and Fiddle Festival Society, which presents an annual 3-day festival, largely located in Sydney. Several concerts a year, often at the Mary Winspear, and monthly workshops and occasional master classes. And our first festival was in 2019, then COVID happened. I'm speaking in favor of our application for a grant in aid, and I would like to just provide a couple of things and then get out of your hair.
Sure. Mr. DeWolf, I will just pause for a moment in that we're not considering grants in aid this evening.
Okay.
It will become to a future agenda. So you can certainly proceed given that you're here. But if you would like to come back at the time of our grants and aid meeting, I don't believe we have a date set yet, but it does happen after our budget
if you don't mind, I may as well.
You're here this evening.
I am here. So we are committed to providing free to the public performances as part of the festival, notably at the bandshell, and that is actually what we're looking for partial compensation for, or to help defray some of these costs. We do plan a festival which happens this year. It's going to be going on the weekend of the summer solstice, and we'll have presentations at the Winspear, at the Army, Navy, Air Force Club, St. Paul's Church, the bandshell, and some workshops and master classes as part of that. Obviously, like everyone else, all of our costs are higher, and And indeed, we are finding that our access to some funding is somewhat reduced because of the demands and limited resources. We draw our audience members and volunteers largely on the Sandwich Peninsula. And if I may, we think what we do is important. We believe that we live in a time when actually people are trying to they're trying to break down our sense of community. They're trying to make us less certain of each other, and we believe the community is important. The people that do this are doing it for their own purposes. We believe we do the opposite, and we believe that is important, and that's why we are reaching out to you for this grant and aid. And with that, I will just retire. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming forward this evening. We do have a someone online for public participation.
Actually, Mayor, I don't see them as connected, so, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Nelson. We'll pause and please come forward.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. Great to be back here. My name is Eric Derome, Development Manager with Highstreet Ventures. And I thought I'd just pop in to say a friendly hello. It's been a little bit since we've been here, and wanted to give you just a high-level update on our 9972 fully electric, net zero energy ready, purpose-built rental community on 3rd Street. So me being here really is just a progress update only. We do look forward to returning to council back in front of everybody in a couple weeks' time if everything goes well. That right now hopefully lines up to be February 23rd. And at that time we will have a more complete, refined presentation that responds to council's direction and also the September 8th resolution. Oh my goodness, I can't think. Since September 8th, like I said, it's been a while. So since the September 8th council meeting, we have continued to work closely with our architects, with our engineers, as well as our project arborists and town staff on site planning options that respond to concerns related to protected trees and their root zones, specifically looking at that the 4th Street frontage and the 3 Monterey cypress trees. We actually had a great site meeting today with city staff as well as the town arborist. We had our arborists join there as well. It's great just to work through it, to be on site together, and it's and truly to have a collaborative experience. In addition to our original consulting arborist, we have also retained an independent third-party arborist to provide an additional professional opinion specifically related to our proposed removal of that middle Monterey cypress tree, as well as our protection strategies for the other 2 adjacent Monterey cypress trees that we're proposing to retain. So all of this work does directly inform our site layout options, including driveway placements, building locations, even construction sequencing, really with the goal of minimizing impacts to the protected trees and their critical root areas. Also, in response to council's direction, we have also completed a transportation study prepared by Bunt and Associates to assess the potential traffic implications on 3rd and 4th Street. And so just really high level, in summary, 1 net new vehicle every 3 minutes during the peak periods was observed. And based on that level of traffic generation, the study does conclude that the project is not anticipated to have a significant impact on the surrounding road networks. And then lastly, I just wanted to provide a very brief update on the demolition progress. So I don't know if you've been down in the area, I'm sure you notice things are happening. So the 1 residential, single family residence on 4th Street has been fully removed now, as well as the associated parking structure. And the 2 multifamily buildings on 3rd Street are undergoing abatement right now and are on track for removal in early April. So just wanting to be very transparent. Now, this work is being carried out in accordance with town requirements and does set the stage for the next phase of development. So in closing, again, just wanting to be as transparent as possible, we do look forward to returning to council on February 23rd, if everything goes really well, with a more refined presentation that addresses the resolution from the September 8th council meeting. Thank you so much for your time, and appreciate any questions, if you have any right now, high level, as well if there's any idea or any recommendations on things that we should be paying very close attention to, maybe points of interest for yourselves at this February 23rd council meeting. We'll take some notes, we'll take it away to make sure that that presentation is fine-tuned.
Very good. Thank you for coming forward this evening. We don't have Q&A as part of our public participation, so we appreciate the update, and we look forward to your presentation coming forward.
Awesome.
At a
Thank
later
you.
date.
Thank you so much for your time.
And I'll call for a third time. Is there anyone wishing to come forward? Anyone additionally? Not seeing any. I will close, and I've just checked one more time online. We did have a participant, an individual who participated, or sorry, who registered to speak this evening, but they haven't joined us. Thank you, Ms. Nelson. So we'll close public participation. And we do have two presentations this evening. Under 7D1 is the ARTC 2025 funding report. And I'm pleased to welcome Wendy Woolard, Treasurer, to present this evening. And we would be pleased if after your presentation, which may be up to 10 minutes, if you would consider taking any questions from council.
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I am going to go under the hood a little bit from the report that was submitted on core funding and sustainability. I'll first start with thanks to the town of Sydney for their stable annual $25,000 support. This helps ARTC provide accessible, mainly free art and cultural programs to the Saanich Peninsula. This support has remained the same level for $25,000 since 2019. The funding from North Saanich has remained at $7,500 since 2020. However, from 2019 to 2025, the cost of living has increased approximately 26%. As you can see, we really do need a significant cost of living bump. As of January, our current draft budget is for a loss of $21,000. An additional $10,000 from Sydney would be a big help. This is the beginning salvo of this program, because I know that for funding, new funding would be next year. So this is just a sort of heads up. An additional $10,000 from Sydney would be a big help. We also presented to North Saanich recently and again asked for more money, raising our income to $25,000, an extra $14,500. The Victoria Foundation has stopped grants to ARTC altogether in 2024, despite more than 50% of our members being from Victoria. We are told there is no other avenue to ask them for more money. If anyone has an in with the Victoria Council, please let us know. In comparison, the funding for the Sydney Museum, 2019 to 24, has gone from approximately $100,000 to $160,000. This disparity in levels of funding is not comprehensible to the Board of ARTC. We would be very pleased to be given an explanation of how their impact in the community outweighs ARTC by 600%. Social impact. Further to this comparison in funding, the annual visits to the museum were approximately 21,000 compared to ARTC programs where the ARTC Gallery has 20,000 plus visitors plus 270 artists. Lantern Festival has 20,000 visitors plus actors, vendors, volunteers, etc. The studio tour has 44 artist studios open and 7,000 studio visits over the weekend. And the SPAG program has thousands of attendees across the peninsula to the shows that are funded by your money. All of the above visits to this community contribute to the economy directly. Coffee stops, gas purchases, support of the local artists, which also supports the local businesses, particularly the gallery. 50% of our renters are from Victoria, and many of their friends come here to see their shows and then have lunch, etc. Relating our revenue to our programs, the total stable municipal revenue in 2025 was $42,500. The rest of our income requires significant time and effort chasing grants and sponsorships done by our administrator, who was originally hired for that expertise. Breaking it out by program may help to show you where the municipal support is spent. The Tourist Gallery takes about $18,000 a year, $1,000 in advertising and volunteer appreciation, $700 in signage. We had a new banner for the pathways out of the building, $4,300 building R&M, security, cleaning, painting, and new display equipment, and about $12,000 payroll for a contractor and many volunteers. The Sydney Lantern Festival costs us about $31,900. $3,600 for ads and volunteer appreciation events, $5,400 for operations, insurance, honorarium for actors, signs, printing, $500 for park rental, and $22,400 for payroll and umpteen volunteers. And they start in January. It takes from January to August to build all the lanterns with many volunteers. The studio tour takes about $12,000, $300 in ads, $3,500 honorariums, new signs, 2,000 maps printed, and online maps made, $8,700 in payroll and 2 volunteers. And our total operations, which is just keeps the lights on, is about $59,000 a year. $36,000 of that is payroll. The SPAG program, which has an administration cost of about $3,000 a year, which is absorbed by ARTSI, we received $32,800, and it's held in reserve for grants only. ARTSI does not use this money for operations. The grants paid out this year were $29,680, and it was for dance, music, radio, audio, visual, and the mural repairs of the big murals on the side of fairways and the Telus building, still in progress. And the community impact of those programs, which we administer the grants for, is enormous. Sustainability going forward. Going forward, our IT system is politely an antique gerrymandered example of an IT monster. ARTSI requires a new system with shared files. Can you imagine shared files? Whoa. Anyway, and professional ongoing maintenance. We are budgeting $5,000 for this after getting professional advice. Also, we are advised that our current system is a security risk, which is worrisome. Going forward with the SPAC program, with the announcement that Sydney had joined the CRD, ARTSI is looking to the town for ongoing evaluation of the SPAG program, vis-a-vis CRD grants being available through the CRD instead of the SPAG. However, many of our SPAG recipients are not qualified for CRD grants. Also, if the program is to be continued, ARTSI will be looking for funding of administration costs going forward. Forward looking for staffing, our single employee has shouldered the full load from our cut on payroll, and that alone is not sustainable. She not only applies for our grants, but she writes the reports for them. All communications to ARTSI go through her. All applications for rents, memberships, bags, studio tours, staffing for the SSLF, insurance are all coordinated by her, and this is not sustainable. ARTSI needs a second full-time employee. Looking forward for ARTSI, you can see that $42,500 provided by the municipalities covers the Lantern Festival and the studio tour, or 2/3 of the cost to keep the lights on without any programs. It's not enough. In reality, if we do not get a significant increase from North Saanich and some increase from Sydney, ARTSI cannot keep going. The ARTSI Community Arts Council either drops most of its programs and staggers along with just the gallery and one other program, or we take a huge leap of faith and work towards some kind of profitable program to self-fund. The positive view, we have 3 new, young, energetic board members and a new president, Hope Hilliard. She will present to you when she returns from California, and will introduce to you the new ideas for sustainability. To that end, Hope has a fantastic idea for a very original community-based show engaging businesses of all kinds with artists of all kinds, art, floral, sculpture, etc. I will leave it to her to introduce it to you, but I will just plant the seed. She is working towards large self-funding for this project, but seed money and buy-in from the municipalities on the peninsula would be fantastic. If there is a will to keep artsy flourishing, there is a way, but it's going to take financial commitment and support from the community. Thanks again for listening.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I will note, and we appreciate the 4-page letter with information that was submitted in advance of the meeting and is included on the agenda. The last paragraph of that letter says, ArtSee extends sincere appreciation to the town of Sydney for the annual financial contributions and staff support. And then goes on to give additional thanks. It doesn't make any reference to a request for increase in funding, but you have made that request through your presentation this evening.
Yes.
So council is not in a position without having advanced information of considering that this evening. So I am going to suggest that that you reach out to staff with regards, so we are going into our budget process in just a couple of weeks, and there will be a series of budget meetings. I would ask that you correspond with staff in terms of the best process to come forward again. You didn't indicate your president was intending to come forward at a future time, and in making contact with staff will also give an indication of the sort of information in addition to this that council may request to inform their decision or their process.
No, I understand that. This was a heads up for next year kind of thing. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry, sorry, please come forward. So apart from the financial request, I will turn to colleagues on council if there are any questions or comments about ArtSee in the presentation and the many good things that you've told us about in your presentation and both in your information package to council. Councillor O'Keefe.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation and a reminder of all the good things that ArtSee does in the community. I'm thinking about the grants program and the fellow who spoke just recently in public participation, looking for funding for the folk and fiddle. So my recollection is that we, the council decided to let ArtSee handle distribution of arts funding on our behalf, and that includes performing arts as well. So the representatives from the folk and fiddle could be applying to ArtSee then through the grant program. Is that?
Yes, that's correct. And in fact, we have provided them with grants before.
Okay, that's great. And then just getting back to your comments about, you made reference again to the CRD grant program and the grant program you're administering, but I was a little bit fuzzy there in terms of if you were proposing something different than what has been done in the past.
Oh, no, not at all.
Oh,
It's
okay.
just, we internally have been sort of discussing whether the fact that Sydney is now participating in the CRD and therefore the grants available through the CRD, and I may be misunderstanding this entirely.
Yeah, I think
I
think you've misunderstood. but
Okay,
The mayor can.
So I
provide
will
some
interject. So the CRD now has, it has one service that has been going for some 25 years, and that's the Arts and Cultural Support Service. And Sydney Council did approve a municipal contribution to that service for a number of years. However, since 2018 or 19, continuing to this day, the town has not contributed to that arts and support funding program. What you may be referencing is the CRD board has approved recently, I think it was late in the fall, of establishing a new performing arts facility service.
okay, that's,
And that would involve actually residents throughout the CR, if it was to go forward, if it was to be approved, and it is, I'll segue for a moment. At the CRD board meeting on this Wednesday, the board will be considering approving the process by which to approve that new service.
All right.
And so it hasn't even gone to a public assent process yet to establish that new service. That process will happen through CRD, and then if the new service is established, residents throughout the region would be contributing to that. We would not be making a contribution, Sydney Council would not be making a contribution as part of our municipal budget process, which is what we do currently, as you've recognized this evening in terms of your current grants to ARTC. I'll turn the floor back to Councillor Keefe.
Thank you, Mayor, for that clarification. So I think what I'm understanding from your comments about the grant program is ARTC wants to continue to administer the grant program on the Saanich Peninsula, but you're considering a sort of like a fee to cover the administration costs.
Yes, when this was
Okay.
originally put into place, ARTC didn't ask for any remuneration for administering the grants. And this has been going on now for 4 years, 5 years, I don't remember exactly. But in any case, because of the various shortages, we are asking for some remuneration for the process of administering these grants.
Okay, and that's something that you would bring forward then in the proposal you're thinking of for the upcoming budget? Okay, great. Okay, well, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation this evening and taking your questions. We're going to turn to our second presentation now, and it is the Sydney Museum 2025 Annual Update and 2026 Business Plan. We're pleased to welcome Michael Goodchild, Executive Director. Good evening.
Okay, just write all that. Fantastic. Okay. Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. As stated, my name is Michael Goodchild, Executive Director at the Sydney Museum. I'm joined this evening by a couple of members of the board from the Sydney Museum. They're behind me, so my thanks for them joining in solidarity and support. My intent for this evening is to provide a summary of the museum's activities, accomplishments and challenges in 2025, condensing the accompanying annual update document to a more digestible format. I will conclude with a brief outline of our plans for this year, most notably an update for the ongoing and long-running waterfront signage project and how we intend to see this project brought to a completion this spring. So, firstly, the numbers. As of 2025, the museum's financial and visitorial strength remains stable, even in the face of ever-growing admin and staffing costs. In 2025, we welcomed just over 19,000 visitors, which is comparable to our 2024 numbers of 21,000. Of these, over 15,000 self-identified as local residents, which does reflect strong ongoing community support from across the Saanich Peninsula. This influx of visitors is continually supported by both a core team of 3 staff, as well as between 2 and 3 seasonal staff. In 2025, we benefited from 2 contract staff, 1 summer student and 1 internship over the fall and winter. Visitor donations in 2025 also remain strong and consistent, just under $69,000. Again, this compares similarly to donations in 2024 and remains high when compared to previous years. Now, a major long-term goal of the Society has been to ensure that non-municipal support remains stable and growing to reduce pressure on our municipal supporters. So our 2025 earned funding was about 89% of municipal contributions and accounted to around 47% of the museum's total operating income. We applied for 8 grants last year, of which 6 were successful, 2 for Canada Summer Jobs, 2 for Young Canada Works, the BC Community Gaming Grant, and the Canadian Museums Association's Exhibit Circulation Fund. Earned revenue also draws from sponsorships, both local and related to travelling exhibits, as well as gift shop revenue, which in 2025 was approximately $7,000. Our 2026 operating budget, submitted alongside our annual update and business plan, takes into account the ongoing 5-year lease and operating agreement between the town of Sydney and the museum. As such, we are not requesting an increase in support from the town beyond accounting for standard consumer price index. As ever, we are deeply grateful for the ongoing support from the town of Sydney. The museum simply could not operate with that support, and on behalf of the museum, its staff, its board, its volunteers, thank you for continued support year after year. Of course, it's not just staff. The museum would not be much without its cadre of volunteers. Our volunteer numbers remain stable. 2024 was 35, 2025 was 36 volunteers. They contributed about 2,700 hours of their time. These volunteers are the face of the museum. They assist with exhibit transition. They assist in outreach events. They assist in ongoing collections and archives management work. And again, it's not an exaggeration to say that we could not do the work that we do without their very generous support and assistance, which extends to featured exhibits. So in 2025, we had 2 featured exhibits. Our annual Lego fan exhibition, which ran from December 20th, 24 until March 25, sponsored by Peninsula Co-op. During that period, we welcomed just under 15,000 guests. Family Day, the weekend alone, we welcomed around 2,700 visitors into the museum in 3 days. To help cover the costs for that weekend, we received support from the BC Museums Association, as well as sponsorships from 13 local businesses here in town. Our second major exhibit for the year was Health in Space, Daring to Explore, which ran from April through November, created in partnership with the Canada Aviation and Space Museum and the Canadian Space Agency. This exhibit explored how gravity, radiation, and isolation posed unique challenges to Canadian astronauts. To create a local connection, we teamed up with the BC Aviation Museum, and they provided us with some information, objects, and interpretive content regarding the RCAF Pat Bay Airport, airbase before it became known as the airport. During the exhibit's runtime, we welcomed an additional 5,500 visitors. This is 1,000 visitors higher compared to the same period in 2024. And in 2026, the museum has been fine-tuning its approach to travelling and featured exhibits. And in 2025, the decision to focus on a single featured exhibition meant that we have more time to prioritise ongoing projects, onboarding seasonal staff, and develop improvements to both the museum and archives, storage, and gallery areas. So our featured exhibition for this summer will be A Seat at the Table, Chinese Immigration in British Columbia, created in partnership with the Chinese Canadian Museum. It explores the historical and contemporary experiences of immigrants, Chinese immigrants, coming to BC, the businesses they contributed to, the industries they helped prop up, as well as what became of them as the 20th century proceeded. There's a huge amount of local history that we can tap into in Sydney. Of course, Sydney's Chinatown, which existed from the 1880s till the 1930s, is right where the post office is located today. We've also been engaging in some oral history interviews with descendants of the families who ran some of the Chinese laundromats and cafes, including the Eng family, who were one of the original proponents and operators of the Beacon Cafe. So we're very excited about the work we've got going on there. So that will be slated to start at the end of April. We've also got a new system set up where we can have monthly pop-up exhibitions that tap into events taking place on the peninsula, as well as events important to Canada as a whole. So for instance, right now we have a display celebrating Black History Month, Black Pioneers, on the Saanich Peninsula. That's running until the end of February. That was created in partnership with the BC Historical Awareness Society. We've also got exhibits planned for Asian Heritage Month as well as National Indigenous Heritage Month, and these can go up relatively quickly with assistance from our summer staff to keep the content fresh while we do ongoing quality of life improvements to our permanent galleries and while we have our major featured exhibits. Future exhibits, we are considering a few internal in-house exhibits. For the last few years, we have had traveling exhibits, and we do want to try and tap into more of our local communities. So I'm interested in revisiting the photography and photograph exhibit we ran in 2023, Snapshots of the Saanich Peninsula. I'm also hoping to reach out to a few local artists on the peninsula for a sculpture exhibit that will be planned for 2028. And we still have in the works, or this is more of a long-term goal, a brewing on the peninsula that we have tentatively named Hops to It for now. Future traveling exhibits, the main one we're looking at right now is called Broken Promises, which is grounded in research from Landscapes of Injustice, which is a 7-year international community project. Broken Promises is examining the discrimination, dispossession, and forced relocation of Japanese Canadians in the 1940s. Again, there's a lot of local history that we can tap into for that, and so there's making those local connections to justify those exhibits being in Sydney is always something that I'm looking for. Now, ever since Sydney Museum was located in the old post office, its location of its archives has remained separate from the galleries, collections, and staff rooms of the museum proper. Moreover, as of August 2025, of course, the town is officially looking into the matter of replacing Municipal Hall with a new space. One of my hopes in presenting to you this evening was to formally bring to the Council's attention that Sydney Museum requests that any discussion of a new town hall also include consideration for how the museum and archives may be incorporated. We envision, ideally, that the new hall would be able to provide space for Sydney Museum's archives, including all the current amenities as well as capacity for growth. And my staff and I are putting together a more formal and more detailed spatial needs document which breaks down our current and desired needs line by line for a square footage total, as well as identifying all of the common spaces staff and volunteers use, amenities that we currently use and would need. While ideally I would love to see the museum and archives be united into one location, I recognize that accommodating both the museum and the archives into a single spot may simply not be feasible. The archives has a current total use of about 525 square feet, whereas the Sydney Museum's is closer to 5,000 square feet. So putting them together, 5,500 square feet is a massive amount of space. So I'm cognizant of that amount that we have to work with. However, I would also be interested in the future of the museum considering approaching other organizations in town to potentially pool resources, support one another, and perhaps, if a space were to appear, opt for a shared space. The aforementioned Artsy was one of the groups that occurred to me as I was deliberating this, that we may be able to work collaboratively with other non-profit organizations on the peninsula, potentially if a new space was ever needed, resources and expertise could be shared. At the moment, that's more of me planting a seed. I recognize that a lot of the deliberations and discussions have yet to begin, so this is me officially requesting that the museum be considered. And on to the final and arguably, in my opinion, more important aspect of our immediate future, the waterfront signage project, which, as you all know, has been a project that I have been fighting to get done since I started in June of 2022. We have made great progress in 2025. Unfortunately, as is seemingly tradition, we've also encountered numerous challenges and pitfalls, and I'll go over the Cliff's Notes here to bring everyone up to speed. So as of July 31st, 2025, we finished all of the media finalized interpretive content for the 13 new panels, all of which were submitted. However, progress had been impacted by time and budget overruns caused by staff turnover, both the museums back when I started, as well as Peninsula Signs over the last 3 years, technical issues, and unexpected increases in design and fabrication costs. And in November of 2025, these challenges culminated, unfortunately, in our project partner, Peninsula Signs, formally withdrawing from the project. They did send us a folder containing all of their work done to date, and we at the museum have wasted no time. In December, we reached out to a number of local graphic design and printing companies trying to keep the focus local, and we ultimately landed on Holy Cow Communication Design. They came very well recommended. They've previously done work for the Shore Centre for the Salish Sea, as well as, I understand, for the Town of Sydney's Town Talks. We had an opportunity to meet with them, and we're very pleased with the progress we've been able to make. So we do have an amended expedited timeline, which Holy Cow have agreed to and have been able to provide us with assurances that they should be able to get the majority of this work complete by the end of March. And what makes me particularly excited about this is that as of about 24 hours ago, we received from Holy Cow the design draft. This is the intended full redesign of what all the 13 panels are going to look like. Now, obviously, that does differ quite a bit from some of the original designs that you have seen. Part of this is the designer at Holy Cow wanting to take their own swing at the project and see what we think. This is something that we're very excited about. We feel as a team that the new direction these panels are taking keeps the spirit of what Peninsula Signs had in mind and all of the content that we wish they to include, but focuses it in a slightly different way, slightly different color palette that we think kind of works a bit better with the walk along the waterfront. And we're very excited to see where their work is going to take us. So this that I'm sharing with you, literally 24 hours old, and we're currently in staff deliberation right now, and there'll be more information about this coming your way very, very soon. Well, of course, the main issue, though, that we're dealing with now is price. Holy Cow quoted us with around $13,450 for the remaining design and production work. This is far in excess of what the museum originally budgeted for when the project was envisioned back in 2020, 2021. Fortunately, the museum has enjoyed several years of very high visitorship and good revenue and support. And so what we are planning on doing is withdrawing funds from one of 3 separate contingency funds the museum has set up. We're currently debating now which pool to draw it from, essentially, to ensure there are no further delays. It need not be said, this project has been going on far longer than I think anyone would have liked, and I am very cognizant of that, which is why I'm trying to push to get this complete within the first 3 to 4 months of this year. We will withdraw from these contingency funds, and as such, we will not be requesting any additional funding support from the town of Sydney. The museum has the resources. Now, to make up for this loss in our contingency, Jessica and myself are working behind the scenes for a variety of attempts to secure stable funding. So we've approached both the Victoria and Vancouver foundations. Of the Vancouver Foundation, we've been approached ourselves by the Jack and Sylvia Ginn Foundation. They're offering, they're a charitable foundation, and they're offering funding support to help complete this work. We'll also be engaging in a second round of fundraising, and even though we are aware it's a very economically tight environment in which we operate, so we will do what we can to try and generate more support from the business community. And then finally, there are a number of other grants and infrastructure grants that we're going to be looking to applying for specific to this kind of heritage project through BC Heritage to try and make up the difference. So we affirm our commitment to this project. This is something of a something I really want to see done, certainly in the coming months. This has been a major focus of mine since I started here, and I'm very eager to see this project brought to a completion, to give it the justice it deserves, and to make the waterfront of Sydney just that little bit more beautiful. There's plenty more, but I feel like I've run out of time, so I just wanted to say thank you all again for your time and attention. I really appreciate the ongoing support, and I look forward to continuing to serve the museum for another year. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael Goodchild, for your presentation and your slides accompanying. I will turn to colleagues if there are any questions. Councillor Duncan to begin.
Thank you. Well, it's not really a question, but since you mentioned that you had thought about potential ways that you and for other organizations such as ArtSee could collaborate, I had the same thought at ArtSee's last board meeting. When the president was speaking about an exhibit she was thinking of putting together for 2027, which I will not spoil her, but I thought it was very cool. And I think that there's other exhibits you've had in the past and things you might have in the collection that you could really fruitfully collaborate. Potentially, she might be going a different direction than I'm started, fermenting in my head. But when she gets back, if you guys were in contact, I think it could be a good collaboration for you in what she was looking.
I agree. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, has she already spoken to you?
No, not yet, but I agree. I think it's a great idea.
Awesome.
And I want to reach out. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor O'Keefe, please.
Great. Thanks for the presentation. As I look through the report, it's great to see the amount of community engagement that the museum has done. Lots of school groups coming in, people making good use of the archives. So nice to see more issues of the Peninsula Review now available. So I think those are really great things for the community. In regards to the collaboration with other organizations, we've had discussions about that in the past, and I have with ArtSee as well, and local First Nations, as you know, are also looking for a place to display their art. So as you look to fine-tune your plans on space, and you mentioned that, I encourage you to reach out to those groups again and look at where there might be opportunities for sharing and collaboration of space, perhaps in a new facility. So it's good to hear you're thinking that way. Just one thing on the statistics, just if we can go there was a slide you provided on the monthly attendance for 2022 to 25, and I'm just trying to figure out what the actual amounts were for 25 and 24, because in the paragraph it says in 2025 the museum welcomed 9,153 visitors. This is comparable to the visitors in 2025, which was 21. So is one of those meant to be 2024 or?
Yes. Yes, one is 2025, one is 2024. Comparing the numbers from last year to the year before last. I can tell you the updated number, the corrected numbers here, excuse me. So in 2025, the museum welcomed a total of 19,153. In 2024, it was 21,710.
Okay.
And in 2023, it was 13,433.
Okay, so it was a little bit lower.
Yes.
From last year. Okay. Yeah, thanks for that clarification. In regards to the signage project, glad to hear that that seems to be back on track. And you've got some ideas of where that money may come from. One thing I was wondering is, I remember years ago, the museum had a policy of having a contingency fund available that covered 3 months of operating costs. And so I'm wondering, is that policy still in place? And if so, is pulling $13,000 or $14,000 that impact that contingency fund?
So the policy is still in place, yes.
Okay.
Because this is a project expense rather than operating expense, though, I'm not 100% sure how it would apply in this specific instance. I would have to do a bit of double checking to make sure. I do know that separate from that contingency fund are the 2 GIC accounts that were opened last year, both of which contain ample funds that could very easily correct the difference as well. So it would be possible to withdraw from those without it impacting the museum's original contingency fund at all.
Okay, okay, that's great. Yeah, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gurnett, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Goodchild, for your presentation and for your work, and hopefully the 3 of you are getting some good rest before the weekend, because I know you'll be extremely busy. Family Day is so much fun for you guys. And I echo, I remember when this project started, I think back in about 2019, Alyssa was still executive director. I've been around on that board for quite a while, so I'm glad to see this is finally coming to fruition, and thank you for all the extra work you're putting in. I have a question around the traveling exhibits, because I know originally before A Seat at the Table came, there was talk about doing Ukrainian Canadians, and I don't see it in your future plans either. So is there a reason why that one kind of got taken off the mantle?
Yes, 2 reasons. The first is that it's very popular and almost completely booked up for the next 3 years. So I haven't put it on our it's still on our long-term radar, but part of the issue as well is that it's quite a small exhibit. It's much smaller than I had originally realized when I was pitching the idea to staff and bringing the idea to council. Still worth us having 100%, but it would only take up about a quarter of the lower gallery. So it would be a matter of placing it with something else to make better use of the space, because I don't want to have just it there and the rest of the gallery be empty space.
Great, thank you very much. And again, thank you to you and your staff and your board. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gannett. Seeing no other speakers, thank you again for the presentation. Thank you to your volunteer board. Thank you to you and your mighty staff. And of course the volunteers as well, and continued success in 2026.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're next turning to section 9, which is development permits and development variance permits. We have 2 items this evening under 9A. We have development variance permit application number DV100383 at 2519 Shore Acres Road to retroactively allow an increase to the maximum permitted lot coverage and allow an accessory building to be sited in the front yard to legalize a garage that was rebuilt in the same non-conforming location. We have considered this at previous meetings. Council gave direction for notice to go to neighboring residents. We have no written submissions received as of this evening. I would turn to Council for a recommendation, please. Councillor Duck.
I move that the recommendation application be approved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I'll turn to the movers.
Nothing to add at this point.
Councillor Novak, a seconder.
Nothing, you're
Okay. Any discussion? Councillor Gannett, please.
Thank you, Mayor. A little troubled by this one through the process. Spoke to that at the last meeting about the permit aspect of it. I went back and reread the staff report and rewatched the meeting actually when we discussed this on the 26th, just so I made sure I got the comments from the applicant or the person presenting that evening correct. And when I was looking back at the comment about the building permit, and he said we had a building permit, and staff rightly pointed out that that was for the primary residence, not for the accessory structure. And it struck me as kind of odd as somebody who would be a developer in the industry that wouldn't know you need separate building permits. So that has been a problem for me as I considered this application. And also the comment that they had a discussion with the building inspector and that we don't care what you do, don't change the footprint. That sort of intimates a little bit of unprofessionalism on our staff's part, which I have a strong disagreement with. I find our staff to be very competent and professional, and that statement kind of bothered me as I took away from the meeting and had a chance to reconsider it. And I think it's, I'd like to expect, based on what I saw in the staff report, that in fact, throughout the development permit process, there was reference made to the fact that the structure would remain and there would be minor alterations, paint, etc. Staff had mentioned that they could, if there was rot, they could repair the rot, but the building had to stay the same. Now, we have the same footprint, we have the same size building. It has been argued that, yeah, okay, that existed before, but our process is that if you demolish a structure, you can't put it in the front as an accessory building. And then there's this matter of the 30%, what used to be allowed now down to 20. And we can say, well, that's not a big deal. But it is, because we went through a major public engagement process through the OCP and the zoning. And so the ESA, which this area falls into, it was rather apparent through the discussion that people were concerned what happened there. So lot coverage matters. Having a building in the front matters. And yes, it may exist now, but the design could have been different. I was thinking of the expression in Latin, tabula rasa, blank slate. You demolish a property, you could have accounted for storage, you could have accounted for physical fitness. There's a 2-car garage, they offset. They're not one. There's a way to do it. It's just the whole process for me is problematic, and I think it's just been a string of this in applications and yes, people can ask for variances. They have that legal right to do so. But what I'm really struggling with this is that there seems to be this intimation that it was staff's fault for how this process unfolded, and I don't agree with that. As I see the process playing out in the staff report and comments from the person that provided the discussion and the presentation, they don't align for me. So I see there's a bit of a problem there, and I can't support the recommendation based on that, because I've been consistent about process in the past, and especially in this instance where I wasn't present. I can't say what was spoken, but I rely on my staff, and I trust and believe in them. So I think that it just doesn't feel right to me as far as the process is followed in this, and this building, being demolished after the fact and then rebuilt, or starting to be rebuilt, where we had to put a stop work order on it. and just assuming you could build it without a building permit, there's too much here that doesn't fit for me, and so I will not be supporting the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gannett. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Duncan, please.
Just very briefly, while recognizing Councillor Garnett's points about the process, I think I am looking at the end result of what would happen if we denied this application, which would be that this building would need to be taken down, and you'd probably have to rebuild it somewhere else, and there's embodied energy and materials that go into things, many of which would probably end up in the landfill, and then new materials would end up on the site. And so while I concur that this process was not done well, the end result in this case I think would be worse if we asked to have it taken down, considering that what is on the site now is equivalent to what was there prior to the OCP changes, and so the experience of the people in the neighborhood isn't that it feels any worse to them.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Seeing no further, Councillor Duck, please.
Yeah, I similarly had share some of Councillor Garnett's, and if I may, I'd like a question through to staff, and just if that's okay, Mayor?
Yes, please.
If I can, through to staff, just to get a sense of if there was any follow-up following the last meeting where these statements were made, just in discussion with the developer, just because I share Councillor Garnett's thoughts, and I'm concerned about that process being not handled well by the developer, and I'm just wondering if there any follow-up to that statement. Thank you.
Ms. Verhagen, please.
Good evening. Through the mayor to Councillor Duck, no, I didn't have any discussions with the applicant, and I'm not aware if any other planning staff did either. Thank you.
Mr. Edwards, please.
Yeah, and thank you, Councillor, for that question too. And we're generally not in the practice of following up when there may be false statements, and it's not something that we really want to get into a he said, she said type situation. And so while it is concerning to have those kind of statements being made, you know, we just don't typically follow up on them unless it's very egregious.
Thank you, staff, and I appreciate that. And I guess as Councillor Garnett's put, I'm concerned that puts our staff in a different position as to their professionalism, and I would hope that if there's good statements or poor statements made against staff, that there's some correction to those in the future so that it's clear to the developer or the proponent that that's not how our staff works. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no further discussion, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Garnett is opposed. The motion carries. We're turning to 9B, which is Development Variance Permit Application Number DV100386 at 2172 Summergate Boulevard to allow a reduction to the minimum permitted interior side yard setback to legalize 2 new raised patios on the north and east sides of the existing dwelling. Like the previous application, we did receive it and discuss it at previous meetings, and we have requested notice to neighboring residents. We received no written submissions as of today. I would turn to council for a recommendation, please. Councillor Dutt?
Yes, I move that the recommendation, the application be approved.
Second.
It moved and seconded. I'll turn to the movers.
As was stated in the presentation of this, it doesn't have much impact on the community and the neighbors because of the backyard park forest area. So I think it's acceptable to ask for that reduction and get it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing to add, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Gannett, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know, these two just caused me a bit of consternation for some reason, the other for different reasons. And it's true, there's no noticeable negative impacts on adjacent neighbors. If you look at the home to the north where the work was done, it's the path behind the Green Glade playing field. And if you look to the east, it's a path that's adjacent to the highway connecting Green Glade Road to Peter Grant Park. I guess where I'm struggling with in this particular one is that there is an onus on an individual or a contractor in this case, or a builder contractor, to confer with staff to make sure they're doing it right, to make sure they're measuring from the proper place. This seems to have been skipped. Maybe there was an assumption made. I'm not sure what happened. And my other concern is if we approve something like this, this is a person who obviously contracts or works in the community. Is this same or similar thing going to happen somewhere else based on no consequences from this happening? Now, I contrast that with the fact that you're a homeowner, you hire what you consider to be a professional, you assume they get all the right permits, you assume they're going to do the proper measurements, and so, otherwise you would do the work yourself. And I am very sympathetic to homeowners who make these mistakes, because they're easy to make based on measuring from fences or other things, not realizing your measuring point. But when you're talking about a professional who's doing the work you're paying for, how do you hold the homeowner responsible in this particular instance for work that was done incorrectly? And that's kind of where I struggle based on following process, but I do have concerns, and I probably will support the motion just because I don't want to leave the homeowner out to dry, because part of this has to do with an interior part of their building where the bedroom, I believe, was extended, so any kind of changes would have an impact on their living space. But it just going forward, to anybody who might be listening who's a builder or developer, please take the time to work with our staff. They're excellent. They will work with you and make sure we can avoid errors like this in the future. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no further discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that does carry unanimous. Thank you. We're turning to number 10 now, Mayor's Report. I have two items on the agenda. Is under 10A are the CRD Board highlights from the January 14th CRD Board meeting. I don't have anything I wish to comment on further. I think it's always helpful having the attachments and links that are included in the report. I'll turn to colleagues if there are any questions. Not seeing any, I'll turn to the second item. Council is aware, members of the public are increasingly becoming aware of the proposal that came to the BC Victoria Regional Transit Commission in November at their commission meeting last year for proposal for direct service to the Victoria International Airport. And there has been some coverage of that in the media. There has been certainly some information. And I just want to, I submitted an op-ed to the Times Columnist last week, and they ran it on Saturday, and I would just like to read that in for the record this evening and then make a comment afterwards. So the title is Proposal for Direct Transit Service to the Airport Lacks Fairness. BC Transit has an online survey open now. It is seeking public feedback on a proposal to improve transit connections to the Victoria International Airport, known as YYJ. The proposal would reroute the existing Route 72, Schwartz Bay Sydney Downtown bus to serve the airport on all trips. This would add an average of 10 minutes to the travel time between Schwartz Bay or Sydney and Victoria, and vice versa. Improving YYJ connectivity is an important goal, but it should only be pursued as part of an overall increase in service, not by reducing service on other routes through Sydney. Route 72 had 1.17 million rides in 2023, and the forecast with the proposed changes is for nearly 44,000 additional rides within 2 or 3 years. However, the increase in travel time on Route 72 and the reduction of service in 3 areas of Sydney, on Lochside Drive in South Sydney, on Kenora Road, Ocean Avenue, Sterling Way in West Sydney, and to the West Sydney Industrial Park, is forecast to decrease ridership by close to 44,000. Thus, there is no new ridership. Instead, there is a shift in who rides the bus. Equity and accessibility are important across the regional system. This sacrifice of Sydney service for a better service elsewhere in the system lacks fairness for residents and workers in our community. Reducing valued service on some existing routes in Sydney would be a big step backwards and undermine years of community advocacy for better transit in our area. Improved service was added to West Sydney's industrial and residential areas in January 2026, just last month. Over the past 2 years, Sydney Council has approved 320 rental units and supported a new 130-room hotel along Beacon Avenue West, with the understanding that these developments would benefit from this enhanced transit service. Yet the new proposals, slated for implementation as early as September 2026, would reverse these much-needed improvements just months after they were introduced. In April last year, Sydney Council approved a Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, with Victoria Regional Transit to establish a new transit hub near the Mary Winspear Community Centre. The goal is to provide the peninsula with a rapid bus service, similar to the West Shore Downtown Rapid Bus that launched in early 2023. Direct service to the airport should only be considered further when the new Peninsula Rapid Bus service or other new express service is being considered. The region's population and transit ridership are both growing, and mode shift to transit is gradually increasing. The Victoria Regional Transit Commission should continue its strong record of expanding service rather than reducing service for one group of riders to benefit another. It's a matter of fairness. And I'm encouraging participation in the engagement. It continued that the online survey is open until February 15th. You can find the link at the Victoria Transit website. There are also open houses in Sydney this coming February 11th and Saanich on February the 12th. The time and place are also available at the same link. I would like to add, that concludes the op-ed, I would like to add that Victoria Transit will be coming to council on at a council meeting of February 23rd to make a presentation and receive feedback from members of council. And the meeting where the Victoria Regional Transit Commission will make a decision on this proposed new service will occur at their March 10th meeting. I've already advised the Transit Commission that I will be submitting a letter very similar to what is composed here to that meeting to be included in the agenda package to commissioners, and I will be attending the Transit Commission meeting to observe. So I just wanted to, as I say, read that in for the record today. I'm happy to take any questions from members of council. Councillor Duck, please.
I just want to add my comments to yours, and I encourage people to fill out the survey. It doesn't take very long. I filled it out, and it does give you some good options and direction as to what is being considered, but the more people that fill it out and indicate that the change in the number 72 is not acceptable for this community in any form or anything. I can't imagine the number of people getting on with luggage and anything is just going to inhibit that service. So I really wish to encourage people to fill out that survey. It doesn't take very long. And in addition, the mayor spoke of the open house, which will be at Save On Foods on Wednesday afternoon. Please go by there and reflect your opinions to the folks that will be at that pop-up. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. So that is just for information. No motions are required. We'll next turn to council reports. We have one this evening, and I'll turn to Councillor Gurnett, our liaison to the Sydney Business Improvement Area Society.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'll just give a very brief update. I attended the latest board meeting on January 28th. An update on the Sydney gift card program. Approximately $60,135 in November-December sales, which was a record. It was unbelievable. It was to hear that total. It was very impressive. This program started May 15th, 2023. And to date, the sales have been $277,155, with $154,752 having been redeemed. So this program is working. It's having a positive impact on our local business community. And a real shout out to the SBIA for coming forward with this in its original form, because it's, I mean, I see these cards go through my own house. So I know it's, and I can attest to the fact that they're well received. Just a brief update on the MRDT, which is the hotel tax. The SBA will be meeting with the Sydney's hotel partners this month to share progress on the website and asset updates. And just as a side note, when we had our last board meeting, I spoke to one of the board members, is a person who runs one of the local hotels, and I asked if they'd had any negative feedback from the public since it had been implemented last August, and they intimated they had not heard any negative feedback at all and hadn't heard from any other hotels along that line. So people just seem to be paying in. It's just part of regular business for them. Some scheduling, updating. Sydney Pride Festival, it will be back on June 13th at Beacon Park. There's a tentative date for the Employment Expo of April 1st, and this is usually held at Mary Winspear. The Savor Sydney runs from March 13th to the 31st, and they have a gala on March 12th at Mary Winspear. And there's also a digital marketing masterclass, which is being held February 26th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Mary Winspear. And at the time of this meeting, there were 130 people already registered. The AGM for the SBA will be on March 25th. This is at 8:30 a.m. It can be through Zoom or in person at a collective. And finally, the Work in Sydney Perk Pass is back for a second year, and in the first 2 days, 150 passes were given out, and they give out 500. And so, I mean, by now, I haven't spoken to them. They may all be gone. They do collect data from individuals that come in, where they live and how they get to work. And they use, this helps enable them to better support for hiring challenges in the future. And that's my update. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gannett. We appreciate the updates. Councillor Novick, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question through you to Councillor Garnett. Do we have any idea of how much revenue the hotel tax is bringing into the SBIA?
Those numbers haven't been presented as of yet. I think they're just a few months into it. So, I mean, and maybe there will be a total at the end of the year. Not sure if they're going to do yearly updates, probably, I imagine.
I assume it'll be substantial.
3%, I believe it's 3%, I think is what it is. So, yeah, I mean, it's not going to be a small amount of money, but yeah.
And do they have a plan for that additional revenue? Is there like added marketing plan and stuff?
Yeah, if I might, when the BIA came forward, because it did require council approval to proceed with the MRDT before their application went to the province, it was indicated that it was a requirement by the province to have a 5-year plan for it. So yeah, that was included.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again, Councillor. We'll next turning to staff reports. We have 4 this evening. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Number 12A is a committee report, and it's the Sandwich Peninsula Accessibility Advisory Committee. We're receiving their minutes from the January 22nd meeting. We don't have any recommendations from the committee. Councillor O'Keefe, as our representative, did you wish to comment at all?
Thank you, Mayor. This was just sort of the inauguration of the first committee for the year, and it was a bit light because we haven't recruited all the members yet. So they just appointed the chair, and then they postponed election of co-chair until we get a few more members. Municipal staff from all 3 municipalities worked very hard together over the last several weeks to drum up, do some additional marketing, and I believe there has been some additional applications come in, so we're hoping that we'll have some additional members for the next meeting, which will be in March. That's really all, unless anybody has questions.
Thank you, Councillor O'Keefe. I'm not seeing any questions. Thank you. We'll next turn to staff reports, and the first of the 4 is under 13A, is the Council Remuneration Review. I'll turn to Mr. Histic, our Director of Finance, for an introduction to the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last June, Council adopted a policy to set the method and frequency of reviews of Council remuneration. And we were asked to report back late last year, and it's been slightly delayed to early this year on our first comparator group review based on that new policy. It should be noted that the last wholesale review occurred in 2014, so it's been quite a while. So the policy dictates that the review involves a survey of 7 comparator local governments in the CRD, and our mayor's rate would be set as the median value of the comparators, i.e. the value in the middle. So the comparator group is like-sized CRD municipalities. We ignored the really big ones and the really small ones, and we're trying to be right about in the middle of all the rest. So according to the policy and the first review, the 2027 rate for the incoming mayor would be $61,872, and this would be inclusive of an anticipated inflation adjustment for 2027. Also, according to the policy, the rate for each councillor is 50% of that amount, or $30,936 each. If we are going to be rescinding the council remuneration bylaw, which is the recommendation, we should make some small adjustments to our new policy to ensure that future councillors remain eligible for certain medical benefits. And we would also do some housekeeping to make it clearer exactly how the annual inflation adjustments would work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hizik. So I'll first turn to members of council if you have any questions, and if we can keep it to questions at this stage. And after questions, I will look for a member to move a motion. Councillor Gannett, followed by Councillor O'Keefe.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Hizik, for your work, and I think probably Ms. Nelson also was involved in that. Thank you, appreciate it. One question, when we were first having this discussion around this policy, and I'm looking at under reviews number 1 about being reviewed once during each council term, I seem to recollect something about it being done in the 3rd year. Do we require any that kind of specificity in the policy, or is it just, would you like to just be generally within that term? That be your preference?
Thank you, Councillor. The preference would be to not be that specific. The idea is to have the rate in place ahead of the next election, and the later we do it, the more current our information is, and the less assumptions and adjustments we would have to make.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor O'Keefe.
Thank you. Through you to staff. In regards to the mention about including information on benefits and more detail on the CPI, is that something that staff are just planning to do anyways, or do you need council to make a motion tonight to make those changes?
Thank you, Councillor. We would be making those changes as a matter of housekeeping.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no further questions, I'll turn to a member of council to consider moving a recommendation. Councillor Dutt.
And I so move the recommendation that 1, that the annual remuneration for the mayor be set at $61,872 effective January 1st, 2027, and 2, that the annual remuneration for each councillor be set at $30,936 effective January 1st, 2027, and 3, that bylaw number 2300 to repeal bylaw number 2154 be given 3 readings.
So I'm just for a moment going to turn to Ms. Nelson. That would involve 3 separate motions, would it not? So if you could begin, Councillor, for number 3 to move first reading.
I so move first reading. Of bylaw
So we're
number
considering, actually, I'm going to separate 1 and 2 and 3, just for convenience. So we have 1 and 2 on the floor, or sorry, we have 1 and 2 moved. Do we have a seconder, please?
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Novak. I'll turn to the movers on 1 and 2.
No, I think that staff have given us a good overview of this relative to comparables, and yeah, I'm glad to see this come forward in a timely fashion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Novak.
Nothing to add.
Thank you. I would like to move a motion to refer this to budget deliberations, and if there's a seconder, I will motivate. Are you seconding my motion
no,
to refer?
I guess I'm point of order in regards to there's a motion on the floor for discussion.
When there's a motion on the floor for discussion, it is permissible to make a motion to refer the matter, even though it is open on the floor, to a later time.
Okay. I'll second for discussion.
Thank you. So to motivate, want to thank staff for the report. We had the policy. We established the policy last year, and staff have carried forward with the policy. The increases, as Mr. Hizik introduced and is in the report, is that for the mayor, the 2027 salary under our current policy would be $48,260. Under this recommendation with using comparators, it would be $61,872, which represents a 28% increase. Council, under 2027, under our current policy, salary would be $19,277, and under the recommendation, given the comparator process that was used, it would be $30,936. That represents a 61% increase. Those are very significant increases. I don't support them at this time, but I think council should be considering increases of that magnitude when we're considering the budget and appreciating what the budget increase is that we're considering in other aspects of the budget. So I'll leave my comments there. I'll turn to the seconder and other speakers.
Thank you. I'm also not in favor of the increases as presented. 30% increase for the mayor, 61% for council. I can't justify that to the community. That equates to a 0.5% increase in property taxes. Our salary would be the same, actually a bit more than councillors in Colwood, which has a significantly larger population. Langford, which wasn't part of our comparator group, I believe their council salaries around similar range at 32,000. That's a municipality who's got population, I think, close to 4 times that
Sorry.
of.
Councillor, I am going to interject.
Okay.
While information is about your reason for motivating, but this is a referral motion. So I indicated that I wasn't supportive of these increases, but wanted to discuss it at a further meeting. I didn't motivate on why I did not support those increases at this time. So it's not about whether we support in the rationale for supporting or not. It's about referring, whether or not to refer it to budget deliberations.
Thank you. I guess I'm just wanting to say why I'm wanting to refer it and not approve it at this time. And I guess if we did refer it, what I would be looking at is, I think we need to go back and look at the policy, because the policy as stated has led to these current amounts. So if we're going to be looking at this again, I think we need to look at whether the policy that we put forward in June is what we want the policy to be. You know, another reason is our increase of 60%. Part of that is because we've bumped the councillor salary to 50% of the mayor's. So those are the things I think we should be looking at the policy again. So if we refer this to budget, those are the things that I would like to be revisiting at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan, please.
Yeah, thank you. I looked at the numbers and thought they seemed frighteningly large as well. It feels like it's actually having to describe remuneration for, a job that is much larger than a small town council is. But the staff table that they've given us shows how they've come up with this number. And so, this is the reason that we wanted to do this review before election, was that we knew a lot of other councils got elected, looked at a comparison table like this for not just the CRD, but also, other municipalities in BC, and then immediately voted to give themselves pay raises. And so I worry that if we, defer and look at it in the context of budget, decide, okay, that's 0.5% of the budget, we want to save that, this is an easy way to cut that. We'll put through a nice budget we all feel good with. There will be an election, and a new council will go right back to this and add that number in there. And I feel that the reason that we came up with doing this now, so that would be incorporated into the budget and would not be a surprise for the town later, we would be kind of going back on our rationale for doing that. So for that reason, I'd rather do that now, and I would, despite how large it looks, I feel that every one of these municipalities that voted to give themselves a raise shouldn't have done it. Unfortunately, when people start doing things like that, it puts pressure on everybody else. And there's nothing we can do to prevent that by changing our own policies. So for that reason, I'll vote against.
Thank you. Councillor Garnett, please.
Sorry,
I saw you first. Please go ahead.
Okay. That's the second. Thank you, Mayor. I won't support the motion. I think we need to have this discussion, as Councillor Duncan says. I think we need to have this discussion now. I don't know what 2027 is going to present in terms of a budget year, so I'd like to be able to consider it in context of forward thinking. But this is something that's been kicked down the road for, the last review was 2014. This was supposed to be discussed 2018 to 2022 and got lost in the pandemic and OCP review. So I think it's something that we can keep talking about it later and later, but you know, it's eventually the elephant's in the room and it needs to be discussed, so I prefer to do that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Novick.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't support the motion. I think we have the time to discuss this now. I think staff have done exactly what council has asked them to do by producing this report in consideration of the policy that we approved in June. And we did that for a reason. And the reason was that we would take the trouble of doing the homework now and approving a set of wage adjustments for mayor and council, only to take effect in the following year, beyond the election. The major portion of our budget discussions coming up in the next few weeks are going to be for 2026, not 2027. We'll have an opportunity to discuss 2027 the year following. The decision that we arrive at today will only be in effect at that time in 2027. I don't believe that we should take any more of our extremely valuable budget discussion time to discuss something that we've pretty much discussed the mechanics for in advance. And staff have done exactly what they've been asked to do. And yes, the numbers look high, but again, it's been many years since there have been any adjustments. When you break it down on a year-over-year increase, it's not that great, and it's in keeping with the rest of the municipalities in the area. So for those reasons, I don't feel that referring this to budget discussions is going to make the discussion any easier, and it'll only take away time from some of the more critical budget discussions that we need to have for 2026. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Novick. Seeing no further speakers, I'll look to call the question on referral. Those in favor? Those opposed? Councillor Duck, Councillor Duncan, Councillor Garnett, Councillor Novick, and Councillor O'Keefe. The motion is defeated. So we're back to the main motion, or the motion as originally moved and seconded on the floor. And my speakers list was, we had, sorry, the movers again, Ms. Nelson, were? And sorry, who had spoken? Yeah, sorry, the movers and seconder had spoken, and then I had spoken. So I will now turn, we've had the movers, so I will now turn to others who wish to speak on the main motion. Sorry, you've spoken, Councillor Novick. When the motion was put on the floor and you were a seconder. I seconded, but I didn't speak. No. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm supporting this for many of the reasons that I just elaborated. I think we need to put this to bed. I think the report, again, has done exactly what council has asked staff to do. The numbers are what they are, and I don't think that that we're going to be able to come up with anything other than what we've come up with and still stick to the policy that we passed back in June. So for those reasons, I'm supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Novick. Councillor O'Keefe?
Thank you. Yes, while it's true that staff did what we asked them to do, and this is what they've come back with, but when we approved that policy in June, and in the staff report today, it says we still have the option to revisit the policy if we think that now that staff have gone and done the review, they've come up with the amounts, the intention, my understanding, and I played back the meeting from June when we reviewed this, is that once we had the numbers, we could look at them and say, okay, that's too high, that's too low, whatever, and based on this, then maybe we need to revisit what's in the policy and change the parameters. The ways that we could do that is we could look at whether we think it's appropriate to have councillors have 50% of the salary of the mayor. I'm not sure, we went with that recommendation, but in all honesty, you know, if somebody were to ask me that, I don't know that I could defend it, you know, just based on my limited knowledge of what the role of the mayor does, is significantly more time and complex than what councillors do. He is, or they are, the sort of the face of the community. So when there's an official presence needed at events, press conferences, that sort of thing. So I think one thing we could consider, if we weren't happy with the policy, is that something where we might have some flexibility. The other thing we might do is, when I looked at the comparators, you know, we agreed to these 7 comparators. I did just, you know, a quick looking around throughout the province, where they list, you know, the size of population of different municipalities and the amounts that they're being paid. And so we might get a different result, a different median, if we looked at maybe a few more comparators that were closer in line to what our population is, rather than some of the other ones. So that's my thoughts for now. I'm not in favor of moving forward with this. If the motion were to fail, I'd look to perhaps have staff go and take another look at the policy and reconsider the percentage and maybe the comparator group. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Keefe. Councillor Garnett?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I think as far as comparators go, I think it's not just population. I think it's also complexity of the duties and what the makeup of the town and functions involved. So I think that the comparators that staff centered on was picked for a reason. And similarly in the CRD, I've spoken earlier about, staff has spoken about earlier about how this last was 2014. And I've spoken earlier about the fact that this was supposed to have occurred the last term. And unfortunately the pandemic, and we had a pretty large OCP review, so the priorities got pushed back on it, and it wasn't in the strat plan at the time. So if you look, if we had done that, we probably would be in somewhere where we need to be. And then we'd be talking about an increase, which is likely to occur in a lot of these other ones. Most of them are done in 2022. There were some in 2023, as is reiterated too, that people brought in raises when they were in term, which is usually frowned upon. So I think some of these communities are going to probably be revisiting. North Saanich is doing one right now, as well as is noted in the staff report. For me, I'm not going to speak specifically to the numbers, but I think what's always been on my mind with this, there is a noticeable gap in what the remuneration is for council in Sydney compared to other communities. Partly because we didn't address it before, but partly it's just, I look around this table, and I've often discussed or put out there that we need to have a more, we want to have balanced demographic in our community. It helps promote health and well-being and vitality and long-term viability of our community. And it would be nice to see that represented at the council table. And not that these people aren't fabulous, but we are older leaning, or, senior adjacent, or however you want to put it. And so I think, we need to set up a possibility that people can apply to do this role. That may not get elected, but I want people to be able to have that opportunity. And I think at this point in time, the way it's set up and what we're looking at in numbers provides somewhat of a financial barrier to some people. Particularly younger generations, because many of them are working 2 or 3 jobs. And if they have to give up, there's considerable time into this role. And if you have to give up 1 or 2 of your other jobs, you have to replace that income somehow. Nobody gets into this for the money. You try to make your community a better place. It's trying to serve your community. But there is that component for people, particularly younger generations. I worked 2 jobs, my wife worked 3. I could not have done this role back then with my young children, because I wouldn't have been able to give up that income to provide for my house. So I think of that when I think about those generations and how we want them to be a part of this process. And so we need to create that opportunity and remove barriers that might be impeding them in taking that opportunity. Whether these numbers are right, I can't speak to that at this point. I do agree with the recommendation for the mayor, though. and Councillor O'Keefe has spoken to that. This is a full-time role. The duties and responsibilities are quite high, and they're represented in the community and for our community in many aspects, dealing with senior levels of government, local First Nations leaders. There's a lot to the position, and I've often thought that it's extremely underpaid based on what the parameters are of what's required of the mayor. For me, the question becomes, what is the percentage that council, as individual councillor, should get in relation to that? And I think that is a discussion for Councillor O'Keefe in terms of a possible amendment. If people think 50% is too much, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I think that therein lies where we can make an adjustment to move this forward and put it in an area you might be more comfortable with, or others might be more comfortable with. But I think the mayor's starting point is one that I definitely would support. It's just where the rest of council wants to land on terms of that percentage of what the mayor is offered at this time. But I do think that if we slow this process down, we're going to make it even worse. Like, if we don't come to some resolution and address this, one, we may not get people stepping forward to run for the community. But the other thing is, you're going to be going, oh, now we're $60,000 behind the meetings. I mean, it's an exaggeration, but there's a reason why the jump is so big. The jump is so big is because it hasn't been addressed. If it had been addressed in a gradual form, then we wouldn't be talking about 60% or whatever have you. And that is where the problem is originating, in my opinion. So I'm open to hearing the rest of council discussion, but I mean, I'm open to the discussion of a different percentage for councillors if you're more comfortable with that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gannett. I'll turn to Councillor Duncan next.
Yeah, thank you. I think, like Councillor O'Keefe, I felt that the percentage for the councillors would probably be an easy way to save money on it because the job duties are so different. On the other hand, I would be okay with not creating more work for staff by sending it back and going with this one based on Councillor Garnett's arguments. And in particular, I've always struggled with how to attract a strong council, particularly when looking at age and working relationships, because on one hand you want a council of your town to be probably people who are on average older, because they will have all of that skill set to bring to policy making. So the idea of having a council that are formed of elders of your society doesn't seem wrong to me. If there weren't a lot of young people on it, that might just be because it's just a job where you look for that. Maybe I'm a traditionalist that way. On the other hand, something we hear a lot about is how there's this very large gap when we're looking at getting people involved in civics, whether it's a volunteer or kind of a council adjacent group like an advisory group or in councils, that we have a lot of trouble getting younger groups for the reasons Councillor Garnett mentioned. People just have a lot more job pressures and commuting pressures and getting kids to childcare. And so part of being able to ensure that that some spaces are going to be held by younger people means that we will be getting people moving into the role where they get to experience their community from that side. And the more ways we can do to make sure all of our levels of government and civics have that opportunity, the more likely we are to not have that kind of rung disappear where we're not having anybody moving up into volunteer positions or working positions like this one, because nobody had the opportunity before, and so thus they have no experience. An example from when I did a short stint in the provincial government when I did my master's was that most of the people who were there were of the baby boom generation or older Gen X. 1/3 of them were set to retire within the next 5 years, and I did my master's 15 years ago. So it's, it was reaching a crisis, and there wasn't a day that went by that people didn't say, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? There was a hiring freeze, there had been for like 20 years. And a lot of the people who worked there had gotten their jobs when they were, say, 22 or 26, when they'd finished their undergrad or their master's, and then just kept them. And nobody else had been hired, and so the youngest person who'd been hired had a PhD and was 39. So no institutional memory, no experiences being passed on. And I think part of what we would be kind of paying for by ensuring that a counselor position was a little bit higher, and thus, maybe younger working people could have that position, is ensuring there will still be that trickle of that pipeline of people who are actually getting an experience in bringing in not only new views to work, but also seeing that so that when they are participating in civics, whether they continue on council or move up to higher levels of government, other levels of government, or, you know, go back to being a regular civilian, they've seen it from that side and have a better understanding of how their society works and how to participate and feel invested in it. And so in a way, this is would be our taxes investing in, I guess, succession planning in a certain way, is one way I can look at it. So.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm turning to Ms. Nelson first.
Thank you. I just wanted to, I'm looking at the UBCM guide that they had for remuneration that we looked at when we created the policy, and just wanted to make a note that the percentage for the mayor, from the mayor's salary to the councillors, was anywhere from 30 to 50%. So if you wanted to choose something maybe in between there, like maybe 40% they used as one example as well, but it's anywhere between 30 to 50%. Just
Thank you, Ms. Nelson. Sorry, if I may speak for a first time, and then we can go to second time speakers. So thank you for the discussion, council colleagues. I have to say that I'm uncomfortable, discussing and voting for my own salary and the salary of colleagues. I wish there was another process. But this is the process by which we, it does require to have a council resolution on it. Having said that, given that we are discussing or we are looking to approve our own salaries, what is very important is the process that we use for a recommendation to come forward and for us to consider. And the process of comparators is a process used by many municipalities, and it is separate from what we may think individually about the mayor's salary or a councillor's salary. It's a process, and we established that process by policy last year to use comparators, and the information has come forward. So I don't want to. My comments earlier and my comment now is not on whether the 61,872 for mayor is appropriate or not. For me, I'm comfortable with the process, and that is what the process reveals as a recommendation. And similarly for council salary, I have two amendments to this, and I'm going to try one first, and I think there will be some discussion, and then I will have a second one. Whether or not that succeeds, they're different. And so my first one is, and if there's a second or I'll motivate, is to reduce the percentage of mayor's salary for council from 50 to 40%.
Second.
Thank you. So the reason for my motivation, again, is not my view on what the mayor's salary should or shouldn't be, and what the councillor's salary should or shouldn't be. It's process. And when we look at the process, if we look at the chart that's provided by staff, the median, it indicated what the median mayor's salary is, and it indicated what the median councillor's salary is, and it indicated that the percentage of councillor salary was 42.8%. So while we set 50% in our policy last year, we really were not informed by data or by comparators. We set that as guidance, and that's what staff have brought forward to us. However, looking at these comparators, and Ms. Nelson just indicated what UBCM has observed in the broader, across the province, of 30 to 50%. Currently, councillors at 40%. It says 39.9, but currently it's 40%. So if we leave it at 40%, if you will, or change it in our policy to 40%, I would be more comfortable in terms of moving forward with what has come forward in the recommendations through the process of comparators. I'll turn to the seconder.
Thank you. Yeah, one of my comments, the second time to speak, was going to be looking at the chart of the 7 comparator groups. So if we stick with our process, you'll note that 4 of the 7 comparators are in the 40% range. So if we're looking to our process and in terms of what we think is fair in relation to the other municipalities, I think it's quite reasonable to say that 40% is reasonable for us based on the fact that, as I say, 4 out of the 7 comparators are closer to that 40% range. So I guess I'll leave it. I guess just some other comments in regards to the amount overall.
Sorry, we're on the amendment, Councillor.
Okay, I'll just stick with that for now.
On the amendment of whether to go to 40%, and I am going to turn to Mr. Hissick first, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For council's information, if we did reduce the councillors to 40%, the overall impact would diminish to 46,400 from the current 83,000.
Sorry, can you repeat that, please, Mr. Hissick?
The new total impact would be $46,400.
Oh, sorry, I thought you might give us what the new councillor.
The rate would be 24,750-ish.
Coming down from 30,936.
Yes.
Okay, so council members are aware of that. Thank you for the councillor calculation beside me as well. Councillor Garnett, you're next, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually punched all those numbers in ahead of the meeting. It's the kind of thing I like to do, and actually these numbers didn't shock me because I had these numbers back in June because I did my own research ahead of time, so there's no sticker shock for me. So my question is, does it have to be like 40, 45, or can it be any number? So we could do the median of 42.8, and then we would be in alignment with the policy of median. If we're talking about being along the policy, which is in the table, median for the mayor at, and then doing the median in terms of 42.8%, then.
You could seek an amendment to the amendment. That is permitted. Oh, sorry, I'm going to turn to Ms. Nelson.
Maybe to help the process, could we maybe complete the first recommendation, and then if you want to make changes to the policy, then we make some changes to the policy and then approve the council rate, just so it's just a suggestion.
Sorry, I'm sorry if you could repeat, Ms. Nelson. I was just not following.
Yes. So right now we have 1 and 2 on the floor, and maybe if we could separate them and do 1 first and then do 2. So if we're okay with the mayor's salary, get that one done. And if we want to tweak the councillor's salary, then maybe we should tweak it separately with the policy.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So I will go ahead and separate them, unless there's any objection to colleagues or by colleagues. Okay, so we're now considering the first recommendation that the annual remuneration for the mayor be set at 61,872 effective January 1st, 2027. Is there any further discussion on that? Councillor Duck, please.
Yeah, similarly, I'm not going to support this because if we're looking, that would make and we're speaking to the next term. Just to be clear, this is not our salaries. This is our future colleagues that will be holding these seats in 2027 and beyond. And so I'm concerned that the mayor's salary comes up in the top 3, top 4 of that, and yet in size of community, very different. And I realize the staff have done a great job in bringing forward these comparators, but if we're going to be looking at subsequently to councillor, I think we should be looking at the mayors as well. The advantage of our representative of the CRD is there's additional remuneration from the CRD. So I'm just hesitant to increase that to the top 4 in the communities that are represented here, and similarly what that impact is there too. So I won't be supporting the current number of 61,872.
So thank you for your motivation. What you've done is you've motivated for a different amount. So I would suggest if this fails, then we're going to be looking at a motion. It is reasonable, just as I was making an amendment, seeking to make an amendment on number 2 and changing the amount which would affect the rate. Councillor, if you wish, you could move an amendment as to what you feel the mayor's salary should be. I mean, if this is defeated, we're going to be back to square one. So a recommendation would have to come forward at any rate.
Yes. So at this point, no, I'd like to hear from my colleagues.
Councillor Novak, on number 1.
Thank you, Mayor. I support the recommendation. Again, council went to a lot of trouble to develop the policy. Staff went to a lot of trouble to implement the policy and come up with a series of recommendations. The math is pretty straightforward. I think it's perfectly reasonable for us to be in the median of the various salaries in equivalent communities. You know, this is the sort of process where we're damned if we do and damned if we don't. It's lose-lose for us. Whatever we do, we're going to be criticized one way or another. But I think this process is reasonable. You know, Sydney is a wonderful community, and our colleagues have already spoken to the necessity to attract people to civic politics. I think it's important. You know, it's about making the community a great place to live, and it is. That's one of the reasons we're all here. And I think one of the ways you do that is by making sure that people who do give back to the community for something that is as important as running the community are given fair compensation. I think we tend to underestimate the amount of time that's required to be effective as a mayor and as a councillor. And while we're not talking about councillors now, I don't think there's any question that the mayor of our community puts in time, puts in effort, and it's only reasonable that that be fairly compensated for. The model that we've used is reasonable. It's a median. It's right in the middle of the ballpark. And when those other municipalities change, our policy is going to pretty much ensure that we follow along with it. And once we get this on the rails, then we're not going to have these discussions too often, because the policy is pretty much going to dictate how things play out and what the actual salaries are. I don't think that by tweaking the salary of the mayor, you know, plus 1,000, minus 1,000, plus 2,000, minus 2,000, accomplishes any real benefit to the community. It's not going to help. It's not going to make us look better if the mayor's only going to get $58,000 instead of $61,000. It doesn't make us look like we're being more responsible as councillors. We have a process. We agreed on the process. We followed the process. I don't see why we're second-guessing ourselves. So I'm happy to support the recommendation as it is on the floor.
Thank you, Councillor. Sorry, next in my speaking order is Councillor O'Keefe, then Councillor Duncan.
Thank you. In regards to this, I'm more supportive of this than I am of the councillor increase. I can justify this because when I look at the increase for the mayor, it comes to just about $13,000. And this is going back, so no increase in 12 years. So if you look at my quick math, I think that comes to about 2.5% increase for each of 12 years, I think. And I don't think that's unreasonable. As others have said, you know, it would have been nice if we had done this, 12 years ago, but we didn't. So in this case, I can support that increase. Also, the fact that, as I said before, the mayor's job it's kind of like a 24/7 thing. Like if there's something that, catastrophe that goes on in the middle of the night or the weekend, something going on in the community, the mayor is kind of on call all the time and has to be ready to respond. I think the role is complex, as others have said, working with a number of community groups. So for this, I can justify the increase on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Duncan, please.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy with the mayor's salary as it is proposed in here, because I know that when staff came forward with the 6 municipalities that they were using as their comparators back when we came up with this policy, they had a rationale for it, and the rationale was not just how many people lived in that municipality, but also the complexities of the municipalities and how many different industries that town had. Sydney is extraordinarily complex for its size, and so that was taken into account. You can probably find lots of other municipalities throughout BC which have similar numbers of people in them, but they will probably be maybe like a 1 industry or a 2 industry town. They probably don't have 12 municipal neighbors that they have to meet with, plus, you know, a regional government for an actual urban area once it's all added together. And they probably don't have 5 First Nations that they have to work with. You know, as the WSÁNEĆ, they might only have 1. And so an airport, a ferry, 2 ferries actually. These are all things that really make the mayor of Sydney and potentially probably North Saanich, when they do their review, have to be kind of adjusted beyond just the population. And so I think that the rates that, and the municipalities that were chosen are reasonable, and the rates that are there are reasonable. Like Councillor O'Keefe, I'm happier with that than I was with the percentage with the councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Seeing no other speakers, I will speak, and I'm going to try an amendment, and that is the current motion is that the annual remuneration for the mayor be set at $61,872 effective January 1st, 2027. And the amendment is that the increase be allocated over the next 4 years, so the 4 years of the next term.
Second for discussion.
Sorry, I'll clarify. So this is to take effect January 21st, 2027. So the increase, whatever that amount was, 13,612, would occur over 4 years rather than in total in 2027. The rationale for that is, again, I'm not comfortable talking about what the mayor's salary should be or should not be. We have a process. I think the process is reasonable. My concern, which I spoke to briefly during my motion to refer, which was not successful, was that this represents a 28% increase from present. We understand the reason for that. It's because we have not done a review in 12 years. It's taken 3 council terms to come back to this. We are rectifying that in that the new policy that we have indicates that we will review it each term, and I think that is reasonable, and there are other councils, the CRD follows that process. Our tax increase was 10.7% last year. It was the highest, I believe, in the last 25 years or so, and we understood going through the process last year that we would be facing equal or greater challenges in the tax increase for this fiscal year. Not only this fiscal year, but next fiscal year as well. And so while Councillor Novick, pointed out that this increases are not taking effect during during budget deliberation, the budget deliberations we have about the 2026 budget, it would be 2027. We see increasing pressures and taxation not only this year but next year as well. And I think a 28% increase when 10.7% increases are a challenge for me. That as a member of council, I have to reflect on that, and hence my motion to spread the increase over the 4 years. I'll turn to the seconder. You seconded for discussion, Councillor Duck.
Yeah, I'm just a question through, if I may, on this. Would this reflect similarly on the council salaries as well, similar increase over 4 years.
I was intending to move the same recommendation for that, but that will come up under number 2, and council could choose to support it or not.
The concern I have with both those is that that means effectively that we will do no increases other than the ones we set now for the next 5 years. And so this is what we got into.
Sorry, so I've indicated that the increase of $13,612 would be spread out over 4 years. So it's not that there's no increase.
I understand that, but that what we're trying to do is get back to where we should have been many years ago, and now we're trying to recover that, and now we're going to spread that over 4 years. And I appreciate the rationale for it relative to the budget, but it's almost like we should reset the measurement now and then give that consideration in the next increase. I'm a little concerned that we're just delaying what we have to do, and again over a term, and we've just done that over the last 12 years. So I'm not sure I can support it in that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nova?
Like my colleague, I'm not sure that I support this simply because part of this exercise was to bring us up to what should be current appropriate levels of compensation for mayor and council. And by going through the exercise, coming up with the numbers with a methodology that we've approved, and now saying, okay, well, we've done all this, but it just doesn't feel right, so let's chop it up into little pieces and spread it out over the next 4 years. It kind of defeats the whole purpose of what we're doing, and it's moving us backwards rather than forwards. It means that we're always going to be playing catch up. And as it is, by selecting median salaries to use as our comparators, we're already putting ourselves in the middle of the pack. We're certainly not putting ourselves at the head of the pack. So I think diluting those increases anymore, again, it simply delays the inevitable. And if we can get to a point where our salaries are as we've planned or as the policy dictates, it'll be very difficult for future councils to look at that policy and say, this isn't fair, because I think it's quite fair. It's hard to find something that's more fair when you're putting yourselves in the middle of comparable communities. I think we need to get where we're going, and then from that point on, we can play with our incremental adjustments over future years. The 0.5% increase, if you divide that by the 12 years that there hasn't been any adjustment, well, I don't have to tell you, that's like 0.03 something % increase averaged out over those past 12 years. It's minuscule. It looks like it a lot now because we haven't done anything for 12 years, and now we're stuck with having to deal with it, and we don't like what it looks like. But I'm not in favor of, I'm a firm believer in that we have to pay our way. We have to do things, get things right, get things on the table where they should be, and bite the bullet and then move forward in a fiscally prudent way. We've done that by coming up with a reasonable policy. We've done the work, we've done the exercise, we have the numbers. I don't understand why we're not prepared to live with it. It's not going to make a big difference at the end of the day in future budgets. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Novick. I'll turn to Councillor O'Keefe.
Thank you. I'm okay with doing this over 4 years, and I'm not worried about slipping backwards. We're not slipping backwards. It's going to increase every year. At the end of 4 years, it'll be up to whatever it is, 60,000. It'll be about time for us to review the policy, and we will. In terms of the other thing that, I don't think we're factoring in here is the fact that the policy still allows for increases every year based on cost of living. And so we're not really slipping backwards. We're still doing okay, all of us councillors and mayors, getting that increase, percentage increase every year. And that's actually been the case, I believe, since 2014 as well. So it's not like we had a salary in 2014 and that has been unchanged. We have had increases, so I think that's important to consider. You know, and the other thing that, you know, we haven't talked about is that these amounts that we're coming up with, they're pretty arbitrary, really. Like, they're really not based on anything besides, what are you getting? What are you getting? Looking at all the other municipalities. It's not based on, you know, what are the number of hours of work you put in? What is the, what do you think is a reasonable hourly rate for somebody doing this sort of work? It's pretty arbitrary. And so I think we can, if we think we want to do this over 4 years, I don't think we're missing out on a whole lot. And I don't think we're stepping backwards. And I think it's reasonable looking at when we've got a 30% increase in 1 year to spread that out. I think that's reasonable. So I'll support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Keefe. Councillor Duncan, or Councillor Garnett, please.
Just making sure. Thank you, Mayor. I won't support the motion. As others have said, this it's like, it feels like it may not be dragging it out, but it feels like it is. It feels like we're delaying a decision in a way of speaking by dividing it over time, and then what, we're the only community that does that, like, and maybe it is arbitrary, I guess, but it's based on what is best practices. I think UBCM puts out guidances around these things. It's not like staff just came up with this, you know, on the side of the desk sort of thing. They're following best practices in coming through with this policy. And, you know, I think it's been stated by others, but I think it's important to focus on this one thing, and this is not for this council. This is for councils moving forward. If you choose to run and are elected, then yeah, but that's not behind the argument here. This is for a future council. And I think if I kind of feel like we're getting into the weeds a bit on this, and we're starting to trying to figure out ways to reduce pennies and nickels and dimes and percentages. And we're talking about impacts to budgets in the future, and we don't know what things are going to look like in those. And we don't know at this point in time the way the world is moving and the way the governments, senior governments, are downloading on this municipality and all the others in this country, really, and in this province for certain. The complexities are only going to increase in these positions because we're having to take on more and more responsibilities that we shouldn't be having to do and haven't had to do in the past. So the people who will sit in these positions 4, 8, 12 years from now are going to have probably a much more difficult job to do. And I think we need to be a little forward thinking in that respect and realize that the time commitment will probably increase. And there may be a discussion in the future that Victoria had about whether it's a part-time or a full-time job and how many hours you work. But you can't continually let this slide. It's just slid for too long, and then this is why we're having this length of a discussion about it, because it's gotten to this point. So I think it's I hate to use the expression rip off the Band-Aid, and there will be people angry about it. I guarantee you there will. But my hope is at the end of the day, this allows for people in our community that would not normally step up to run the opportunity and the possibility to have this experience and to be able to contribute to their community and be able to not have a financial barrier in their way. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan, please.
Thank you. I'm going to vote in favor of the motion of spreading it out for the reason that I know that other municipalities that did implement a large jump the way we would be proposing here, because they had been a long time without a review, did often phase it in. And so while I agree, Councillor O'Keefe is saying, you know, at this point, the job description and the policy is not very clear. I think if you're a member of public looking at like, well, how many hours do they spend? What do they do? What kind of training are you looking for these people? All of the things you'd normally look for when you're looking at salary for a job. We don't really have that for these positions, and perhaps that will change in the future. But right now what we do is we do compare to each other. It may seem arbitrary, but since that's what we're doing, looking at what other councils did when they brought it in, and which was that they phased it in, does look better. And one of the reasons that we wanted to do this at this time was we didn't want it to make it something we did that the next council, I guess, would do afterwards, give themselves a raise. So we were trying to do it so it wouldn't be ourselves necessarily. However, people may wish to run again, and in which case, then it could become an election issue. We know that people may be watching and saying, well, they voted for that, and they wanted to put this in. And that was one of the things we really didn't want to happen. We didn't want it to be something like that either. And so for that reason, having it being phased in over time so that while we are recognizing that improving the equity of our town compared to others, we are also being very mindful of the fact that it is always a tax impact to residents when this happens, and that this, going forward, this election cycle will probably be particularly sensitive to budget. Cost of living has been going up everywhere. Cost of everything's been going up. We know that the province, is going to have a very painful budget where, what did the Minister of Finance said, she'll be the most unpopular person in the province for a while. We know that people are going to be very, very sensitive to even very minor changes in budget that cannot be justified. And in this case, while we might be able to look at it and look at the job and compare it to the past and see it from the inside, I think this is one of those things where we need to be looking at it really carefully from the way it will appear to residents as well when they see our budget. So.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. I'll speak briefly for a second time, and that is that this will be my, this year coming budget will be my 11th serving as first a councillor and then as mayor. And in each of those budgets, I mean the 2-8 to 2-11 term I sat, there was a financial crisis and we had all sorts of challenges. Every year during budget deliberations, we look at portions of the budget that are significant increases, and we have lengthy discussions about them. This represents a 0.5% tax increase, and I think it's reasonable to have a good discussion with regards to a single item that results in a 0.5% tax increase. My motivation, as I stated at the beginning of making the motion, is that we're facing high tax increases, and this represents a 28% tax increase. We know the reason why, but fundamentally it represents a 28% increase in 1 year. And I think the citizens we serve would expect us to have a discussion as to how supportive we are of a 28% increase in this line item in 1 year. I'm just not supportive of it. And it doesn't set us back. What it does is it closes the gap that has been identified in this process over 4 years instead of 1 year. And we have made those types of decisions in previous budgets. And so we will, with the policy that we have in place, we would continue to do a review in year 4 of the next term, and continue to keep it at reasonable levels. And thank you to Councillor O'Keefe, who indicated that while we haven't done a review of the base salaries for 12 years, there has been cost of living increases on the current mayor and council salaries over that time. Otherwise, the gap would have been much larger. I'll leave my remarks there, turn to any other second-time speakers, and then before I call the question, I will have another comment. Councillor O'Keefe?
Thank you. Just to circle back on comments about, concern about how much time we're spending, getting into this, and I don't know what the comment was, but, second guessing and nickel and diming, the increase in that sort of thing. And I'm just, reflecting back on
Point of order.
Yes, Councillor?
The third time speaking, I don't hear a question or a new item brought forward. Thank you.
So my
Sorry, I'm going to rule on the point of order.
Okay.
And so, Councillor, it is your third time speaking, and if you do have new information to provide.
No, so
or
what
a question?
Yeah, so what I was going to remind council members of is when we go through our budget process, and my recollection is we're looking at ways to bring down the increase. We've rejected things of $5,000, which is, a minuscule amount. Other amounts that are a lot smaller. And so I guess what I'm highlighting is that this is something that we can do something about now if we were to phase it in over 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no other speakers, Councillor, based on our motivations, we're 6 members of council tonight. This would be a 3-3 split and would be defeated. And while I can accept that as a decision of council, we have done this previously, and I would ask for council's consideration to refer this not to the budget, but to the next council meeting where we have 7 members of council.
Second.
So it's to refer it to the next meeting where we have 7 members of council. It's been seconded. I've motivated any discussion, further discussion. Councillor Duck?
Just point of order, do we have 7 in the next meeting?
The next, it would come forward at the next meeting where there are 7 councillors.
I believe Councillor Novak's going to be absent.
Sorry, I don't know I don't know when that next meeting will be, but it would wait until there's a meeting with 7 members of council. Sorry, you have the floor, Councillor.
I'm just going to be, I don't think that will happen pre-budget, just to be clear, that will be probably post-budget. Based on
Or during budget.
Based on absences from council over the month of February.
Yeah, I'll continue my motivation. I think it's somewhat concerning to me that we're taking a decision of this magnitude, and that it would go one way or the other on a split vote, when there's the opportunity of 7 members of council deliberating on. I'll leave my comments there. If there's no further, we've had a mover and seconder. If there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? So that's defeated in a split vote. And now I'll call the question on the main motion to spread the increase for the mayor's salary over 4 years. Those in favor? Those opposed? Councillors Duck, Councillors Garnett, and Councillors Novick. The motion is defeated. Thank you. So we'll now turning to the second part of the motion, that the annual remuneration for each councillor be set at $30,930.
Point of order, we haven't voted on the main motion.
Sorry. Thank you. I'll look. Is there any further discussion on the main motion, number 1? Councillor O'Keefe?
Can you just have that repeated?
That the annual remuneration for the mayor be set at $61,872 effective January 1st, 2027. I'll look to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor O'Keefe and myself are opposed. The motion carries. I'll now turn to the second recommendation, which was put on the floor, or which is on the floor, that the annual remuneration for each councillor be set at $30,936 effective January 1st, 2027. I moved an amendment that the percentage of the mayor's salary be changed from 50% to 40%. We heard from Mr. Hissick that would change the increase from $30,936 to $24,750. It was seconded. We can continue with discussion on that amendment. Councillor Duck.
I'd like to put forward an amendment to that amendment.
Please go ahead.
I would like to suggest that, I so move that we put the percentage at 43%, reflective of the median.
Second.
Okay, I'll turn to the movers on the amendment to the amendment.
Yeah, I think that, again, this is a common challenge we're going to have, is that I think we need to stay within the median as we did with the mayor's salary, and reflect that in the councillor's salary. And I know that many will say that there's not the corresponding time, but councillors do put in extraordinary amounts of time as well. It is not a 9-to-5 job. You're often stopped on the streets in the supermarkets and asked for your opinion and having to listen to concerns and that. So it's not a simple job as one would think. There's a lot of time involved in it, and just purely on time spent in meetings, I average 2 hours a day, 365 days a year. So it does take time, and I think it needs to reflect in the meeting, and as has been said already earlier, I think we need to have that motivation to attract people of all demographics to this role and serving our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Novik is the seconder.
Thank you, Mayor. The techniques, I would say, for coming up with these numbers, I feel should be consistent. We chose the mayor's salary as a median number, and I think it's reasonable likewise to choose the councillor salary as a median percentage of the mayor's salary. And as my colleague suggested, 43, the actual number is 42.8, but I think 43% is a fair representation of that. And that puts us right in the middle of the 8 municipalities that we're using as benchmarks for our compensation program. I think, you know, it doesn't take a math wizard to realize that if you're going to follow medians in one, you should follow medians in the other. It then becomes very difficult to criticize the number because it's, even though my colleague suggested that it's arbitrary but with a method to the madness, and so it's easily defensible. So I'm quite happy to use that median number as a percentage for the councillor compensation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further speakers? So I'll call Councillor Garnett, please.
Sorry, thank you, Mayor. Through you to staff. Staff commented before on what impact that would have. Would you have figures to present at this time with regards to that?
Yes, Councillor, the new salary would be 26,605 for a total overall impact of 44,000.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further, Councillor Keith?
Thank you. You know, I was quite happy with the 40%, especially we're getting a significant increase anyways. But in terms of expediency, and it can be justified, I suppose, by looking at the median, I would lean towards supporting the motion. It's relatively minor change.
Thank you. So I remain supportive of the 40%. It would mean a 28% increase in the mayor's salary and a 28% increase in the council's salary. It would be higher otherwise at 43%. I don't know what the percentage was, but it'd be somewhere around 30%. I'll look to call the question on the amendment. Those in favor? Those opposed? Councillors O'Keefe and myself, the motion carries. So the amendment itself was to 40%. We've amended that amendment, so we're now just going back to the main motion as amended. So the main motion is amended. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Keefe is opposed. The motion carries. And then if we could have a mover for the third part of the recommendation, please. And we need to go through 3 motions. Councillor Dutt?
That bylaw number 2300 to repeal bylaw number 2154 be given first reading.
Second.
Those in favor? Thank you.
That be given second reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor? It carries unanimous. Thank you.
Given third reading.
Second.
Seconded. Those in favor? Carries unanimous. Thank you. I'd now like to call a recess until 8:30, please. Sorry.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry. Please go ahead, Councillor Duncan.
Thank you. Motion arising that the rate, for number 2, the annual remuneration rate for each councillor will be set at the median of the established rate for the mayor's position.
Second.
Sorry, I'm just going to turn to staff for a moment. So it is moved and seconded, but Mr. Hissick, during your introduction, you mentioned that there would be other changes to the policy based on benefits that would be, now that we've rescinded the bylaw, the policy will have to be amended with regards to those benefits. So do you require a motion for that, or do you, could we amend this motion that the policy be brought back, amended as per the motions approved this evening, which would include the 43% and the benefits?
That.
Thank you. So
That.
if
Yes, Andy.
if the movers and seconder approve that, we will continue. Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. I'll now call for recess until 8:30 to continue. Thank you.
Yes.
It's right on the screen there, Steve. Yeah. It's the most entertainment plus.
You know what? Yeah.
Lower the temperature in here?
No, it's gone back down.
Yeah, I was like, no, it wasn't starting.
You know why? Because there's not a lot of bodies in here anymore.
Well, no, it's like, it's getting chilly in here. I'm gonna put on my sweater. In here, it's freezing cold. Yeah.
I'm gonna tell them again that it's not moving up very quickly at all. That's right. What are the qualifications? You gotta be 18 years of age, you gotta have Canadian, you know what I mean? Right?
And not have to be in town hall at the last minute when they need one more name on the ballot.
Times have changed. It's 8:30.
Oh, now.
See, it's 2 minutes.
Every clock is different, hey?
Periodically, they reset.
But I was gonna see you be able to swim.
Okay, we're going to reconvene at 8:30, and we're next turning to item 13B, which is license agreement with Victoria Airport Authority for Sterling Way, Beacon Avenue West, and McDonald Park Road. We'll turn back to Mr. Hisek for introduction on that, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're renewing a license agreement with the VAA for the occupation of their lands for municipal roads. In addition to this agreement, which has been held over for a number of years pending construction, we are expecting a separate construction and maintenance agreement, which is being finalized between town staff and airport staff, which is meant to further clarify the maintenance responsibilities. That related agreement will be brought forward once it's complete. The term of this renewal is 10 years, with 10-year renewals thereafter until the head lease is expired or renewed somewhere about 50 years from now.
Thank you, Mr. Hisek. Are there any questions on this item? Seeing Councillor O'Keefe, please.
Sorry, I did have one. Apologies to staff for not sending it early. Just looking on, I guess it's page 11 of 22, so under compliance with the laws, 5.12, and then that paragraph 2, and it just talks about zoning. And so I'm just seeking clarity on, I understand this agreement to be sort of related to the roads and giving us access to them and us maintaining them and that sort of thing. But then there's this paragraph about no zoning regulations shall apply to or respect of use of land, building, structures, objects, etc., all of that. And so I'm wondering, like, do we not, is that stuff, it just seemed to be out of place to me in an agreement when we're talking about the roads and the use of the roads and the maintenance of the roads. And is that something that's already covered off in, I recall that we went through a process for, with the airport authority about land use management or something. So is that covered off in that agreement, or is that something that would be covered off in this new construction and maintenance agreement, or is that something different?
I'm sorry, Councillor, I don't fully understand the question, but I think your overall concern is that zoning would no longer apply, and that's not the intention.
Okay. I presume then it's covered off, those sort of zoning things are covered in the land use agreement. That, I think, is a separate thing. We'll just leave it. If you're happy with it, I seem to be the only one confused, so we'll let it go. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions? Seeing none, if I could have someone to move the recommendation. Councillor Novick, please.
Thank you. I move that the license agreement between the town and the Victoria Airport Authority FEAA for the continuing occupation of airport lands by town roads be approved.
Second?
We have it moved and seconded. I'll turn to the movers.
Nothing to add. I think the report is complete. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor?
Nothing to add.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you. Thank you to staff. We're turning to item 13C, which is a request for street vending license for Beacon Brewing. And I'll turn to Mr. Newcomb, our Director of Community Planning, for an introduction, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is an application from Beacon Brewing to utilize up to 3 parking spaces in front of their storefront on 3rd Street for 8 days in 2026. And council will recall that they've seen this type of application before in 2023 and 2024. Originally in 2023, they came forward and asked for 6 dates, and in 2024, 7. They also operated in 2025 with no changes, so in that case, staff was able to approve the license renewal without coming to council. This year, they're requesting 8 dates in 2026, and so with that change, they need to come back to council and request a new approval. So there's 1 additional day that's been added in July, but I think generally, in staff's opinion, there's been no issues with this application in the past. They've been very responsible users of the public right-of-way, and we haven't received any concerns or complaints from the community at all, so staff are in favor of approving this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Newcomb. Are there any questions? If not, a council member with good lungs, if we could read the lung recommendation. Councillor Duck, please.
I so move the recommendation that Beacon Brewing be granted approval to operate a food truck from public property on 3rd Street immediately adjacent to their business entrance between the hours of 12 o'clock to 4 o'clock on the last Sunday of April, May, June, July, and September between the hours of 12 o'clock and 8 p.m. on Beacon Brewing's anniversary date in October, and on the Saturday of the Torquemasters Car Show in August, and between the hours of 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. during the annual holiday kickoff to the Christmas event in November, subject to the following conditions. 1, that the applicant meets all the requirements of the street vending policy DV010, and 2, that the applicant provide proof of a valid business license with appropriate approvals for all food truck vehicles associated with the business at the minimum of 2 weeks prior to the approved dates of their operation.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay. Turning to the movers. No, I'll turn to Councillor O'Keefe and Councillor Gannett.
Thank you. I'll support the recommendation. I do have reservations about food trucks taking business away from brick and mortar. That's always a concern of mine. However, as staff have noted, we haven't heard complaints from surrounding businesses or the other restaurants, cafes in the area, so I presume they're okay with that. And you know, staff, as they have said in the report, will continue to monitor any feedback they get. So based on that, I'm happy to see it move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gannett, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I will support the recommendation with the caveat that I do have a concern. We've gone from 6 to 7 to 8 days, and I hope we're not on a path where it's going to become, you know, too many days a year, because yeah, I did hear from the SBA, there was some board members who are restaurant owners in town and felt that there were an increased amount of food trucks during the Sydney street market was impacting their business. So, I mean, maybe we're not always hearing from businesses, but they may be, I'd be concerned with if this goes on more, that there may actually be an impact to the other restaurant businesses, but I will support this at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no further discussion, I'll call the question. Those in favor? And that carries unanimous. Thank you. We're turning to the last item, 13D, the 2026 Basin Bay 5K running road race. I believe Mr. Demare is online. Good evening, Mr. Demare. I'll turn the floor to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, this report brings forward Team West Coast's Running and Triathlon Society's request to host the 2026 Basin Bay 5K road race in Sydney on Sunday, April 12th, 2026. This will mark the 29th year for this event. It's a long-running event within Sydney. As in past years, the event is hosted on 5th and Lochside with the start and finish lines being near Tallista Park. The northbound lane is closed for the duration of the race. For the racers to use, they run down to Southampton Park and then back to the finish line at Tallista. The race commences approximately 11 o'clock to about 12. It's a short duration race and is usually quite well attended, between 600 and 700 runners. So it's quite a popular race. So this report does bring forward the request for the road closures and use of amplification for this event, and that's what this report is seeking. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the introduction. I'll turn to Councillor Garnett, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Demare, for the report. With regards to the sound amplification, the 10:45 to noon, is that something that's specified in the notification to neighbors and businesses in the area?
It's not specifically noted regarding the amplification, and it's really just at generally at the beginning and end of the race period, as they're getting the race organized to get underway, and as the excitement of the finishers coming in.
Yeah, okay, yeah, thank you, because as the town representative there last year, that I can attest to the fact that there was definitely sound amplification quite a few minutes before 10:45. So, and I get it, they're trying to pump up the racers and everything. I just didn't want to create a false expectation in the neighborhood that why is this sound occurring if it says in the notification it's a different time. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Keefe, question?
Yeah, thank you. Through you. This might be for Mr. Edwards, perhaps, sort of policy in general. So this race, we've been doing it for 29 years. It seems like it goes well every year. Is just as we had kind of discussed in the past about the street vending policy, I believe we changed the policy to allow staff more latitude to approve things if things didn't change. Is this something that could also be treated in such a manner? So if it was like an ongoing event, that could, you know, if it was the same every year, something that staff could approve without council's approval?
Mr. Edwards.
Thank you, Councillor, for the question. Council is always given the authority to delegate its decisions to staff. I believe the current policy threshold for these types of events is around the anticipated participant number, and this exceeds that threshold. However, you know, given the nature of some of these recurring successful events that seem to be well supported by the community, it may well be the type of event that could easily be delegated, and that could be something for council's consideration.
Okay, thank you.
So just on that point for clarification, so council could, after passing the recommendation, could have a motion arising to delegate future approvals for this particular race, or we would have to, if we wanted it to be broader than that, we would have to request a report back from staff on which races or how to describe other events besides this one.
And there I'm just informed by our corporate officer that it may also require an amendment to our streets and traffic bylaw, because it does require road closures for this particular event. And so I would want to look into it a little bit more before we would advance that type of recommendation.
Thank you for that. Any further questions on staff introduction? If not, I'll turn to Councillor Duck, please.
Yes, I would like to move the recommendation that Team West Coast Triathlon Society, the Society, be granted permission to use sound amplification and close roads under an improved traffic plan between the hours of 10:45 a.m. to 12 noon on Sunday, April 12th, 2026, for the purpose of hosting the 2026 Bazan Bay 5-kilometer road race in Sydney, subject to the conditions that are outlined in the staff report. And there are 7 conditions there.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Demare. We're turning to item 14. We have no correspondence for council discussion this evening. We do have 5 items under 15. Correspondence for information. We're receiving those on our agenda. We have no notices of motion. Under 17, we have a motion to go in camera. I'll turn to Councillor Gannett, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move that it is in the opinion of council that the public interest requires that persons other than members of the council and officers be excluded from the meeting to consider confidential matters regarding personal information about an identified individual who holds a position with the town pursuant to section 90.1A of the community charter, and that council continue the meeting in closed session.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you. We will recess for just a few minutes to reconvene in camera.